Welcome to lectures on instrumentation in process industries. We are discussing the thermal power plant, how the power is produced in thermal power plant. And in the previous classes, we had discussed the block diagram, that is the thermal plant layout. In that, we have seen different four circuits, how the each circuit plays important role, and finally we are getting the power. So objective of this lesson is we consider another layout, the diagram, and we'll explain, and after that we identify the same four circuits in that. After that we will discuss each circuit in detail, and after that we discuss the boiler process building blocks. After that, drawing the PI diagram of boiler process and measurement of feed water flow. So these are the topics of our objective. This. Okay. Now this is the diagram. We have identified four circuits, and in that how the steam, water, and input fuels flow in different circuits, we have discussed. Finally, how the power is generated, we have discussed. Let us consider this is another diagram, that is our objective. We have to discuss this. Identifying the same four circuits in this is very important factor, because most of the books also include this diagram. So let us maximize this. Observe here, here the first circuit is fuel and ash circuit, that is the coal and ash circuit is the first circuit we have to concentrate. In that, let me show you. So this is the boiler, this is the boiler. So into the boiler you see the coal storage yard. This is the coal storage yard. From the coal storage yard, the coal is coming as a fuel into the boiler. So the boiler boils the water and steam is produced, okay, and because the furnace burns the coal, so that this furnace, boiler furnace, produces the ash, hot ashes. So from the furnace of the boiler we have the hot ashes like this. This is also called slag. So these hot ashes are collected into the ash sump. This is the ash sump. So this is the first circuit. The coal is coming as a fuel into the boiler. The furnace of the boiler burns the coal and produces the ashes also. This hot ashes, waste material, is collected in the ash sump. So this is the first circuit. Okay. Now let us see another circuit. The second circuit is air and flue gases. Observe here, the environmental air is taken by the forced draught fan. This will direct this air into the boiler. So this air helps for the fire. Without air, fire cannot be generated. So air is available. So this air is in the boiler. The steam is produced because of this fuel, coal and air inputs. The fire is generated which boils the water and steam is produced. Not only steam, the output of the boiler is the flue gases, that is hot air, unwanted hot air. So this should be directed out into the environment, and also it is utilized by different sections that already we have seen, but let me show you the circuit. Environment air is coming into the boiler, then hot effluent gases are produced and they are going out of the boiler into the environment like this through chimney. This is the chimney. So this is the circuit. Okay, environment, air from environment in forced draft will direct that air into the boiler, and then boiler flue gases are directed into the environment through chimney. So this is the air and flue gas circuit. Now let us see feed water and steam flow circuit. The third circuit is the feed water and steam flow circuit. So observe here, the water is pumped into the boiler section like this. Observe here, the water is coming into the boiler like this. This is the boiler. So this pump is pumping the water from the condenser. From the condenser, the water is going into the boiler like this. So this water is heated up and this water is converted into the steam, and the steam is produced and the steam is coming to the turbine. So this is the turbine. From the turbine, this exhaust steam is coming to the condenser. It is coming to the condenser. This condenser will convert this steam into water. Hence, it is that the water condensate is pumped into the boiler section like this. This is a continuous process. So this is the circuit, and this is a continuous operation, and that means another important point you have to remember is here the condensate, that is condensate water from condenser is circulating through boiler and turbine into the condenser, boiler, turbine, condenser like this. This is a loop. But another point is initially the plant operation is started with utilizing the pond water or river water. So here is the pond water available, here is the river water available. So, for example, the pond water initially it is pumped into this feed water processing plant. So, from the feed processing water plant, this water after processing it is pumped into the boiler. It is pumped into the boiler. So that water after pumped into the boiler, it is heated up and steam is produced. And steam is produced. This is a initial operation. Next, instead of pond water, river water also may be taken. Here, the river water is taken like this, and it is pumped into the condenser, utilized by the condenser, and then a cooling tower, it may be sent to cooling tower, and from the cooling tower it may be pumped to here, like this also. Next, the last circuit, that means in both cases pond or river water can be utilized by the boiler. That is the important point you have to remember. Next, the last circuit is cooling water flow circuit. Cooling water flow circuit. You see, this is the cooling water flow circuit here. If you observe, so the condensate, hot condensate is pumped into the cooling water tower. So in the cooling tower it is cooled down and it is circulated into the pump, through pump into the condenser like this. So this is a continuous process. You see, this is a continuous process. So this is the fourth circuit available to us. The important point you have to observe is here in the diagram, economizer is not shown, air preheater is not shown, and superheater is not shown. Already in the previous diagram we have discussed that. So generally the flue gases are utilized by these three important blocks, that is superheater, economizer, air preheater. So in this diagram, though they are not shown, but actually they are available in the system, but in the diagram they are not shown. To simplify the diagram, they are not shown. So generally the preheater is used, superheater, this is the superheater section. In this the superheater will be placed. The steam will be superheated by this superheater before it reaches to the turbine. So that is the place of the superheater. And next, the flue gases here, actually these flue gases which are escaping into the environment, they are used to heat air preheater. This is the air preheater section. And economizer, economizer is placed here. So that means these two also, though total three, one, two, this is the economizer 2, and this is the air preheater 3. So these are the three blocks that uses this flue gases to heat these water or air or steam so that the plant efficiency will be increased and efficient production of the electrical power is possible. So these are the four circuits we have identified by considering two block diagrams. You can either learn that diagram or this diagram, both are same. And let us uh, consider the function of coal and ash circuit, the first circuit. Coal from mines is delivered by ships, rails, or trucks to the power station. So, coal mines, from the coal mines, the coal is transported to the power station site. So, the coal received at coal yard. Okay. So, after that, the coal is suitably sized by crushers and breakers. These are the machineries which will appropriately size the coal that is received. So after that, the sized coal is stored in coal storage. So from coal yard, now the sized coal is going to the coal storage area. After that, from stockyard, the coal is transferred to the boiler furnace by means of conveyors or elevators or some other systems. So the coal is transported systematically in a defined manner to the boiler section, that is boiler furnace, where it is burnt. So the coal is burnt in the boiler and ash is produced. So that is definite. Whenever coal is burned, definitely ash will be produced. So that we have to manage that ash properly. Ash coming out of the furnace will be too hot and dusty and accompanied by poisonous gases. So that is the characteristic of ash. It is too hot and dusty, and poisonous gases also accompanying. So the ash is finally it is transferred to the ash storage. So generally the ash will be quenched to reduce the temperature and the dust content. So there, at the place of ash storage, its temperature is brought down and dust content is also brought down. So this is the coal and ash circuit that we have seen clearly in the two diagrams. The second circuit is air and flue gas circuit. In this, already I have uh, mentioned the path of the circuit in the two diagrams. Air is taken from the atmosphere by the action of FD fan, that is the forced draft fan. So this will take the air from the environment, atmosphere. Then it is passed through air preheater. In the one of the two diagrams, preheater is also mentioned. So that preheater is used to heat the air pumped by the FD fan. So how it is preheated? With the help of flue gases that are coming out of the boiler. So those flue gases will heat the air. This preheated air is supplied to the furnace to aid the combustion of fuel. So if you supply cool air, what happens? The cool air decreases the performance of the boiler, and it decreases the overall performance of the plant. That is the problem. So if the preheated air is applied to the furnace, so the combustion efficiency increases. So due to the combustion of fuel, the fuel gases are formed. So the fuel gases are formed because of the combustion of the furnace. So the fuel gases inside the boiler must be exit towards the chimney and into the environment. So the flue gases from the furnace pass over the boiler tubes and superheater tubes. So superheater tubes are not part of the boiler, but uh, beside the boiler, superheater tubes are also placed. So here, if you observe, the flue gases will increase the temperature of the boiler, thus heating the water pipes, heating the water pipes or water drum. So the water is now boiling and steam is produced. That steam is the wet steam. So that wet steam which is coming out of that, so that wet steam is superheated and converted into a super stream which is directed towards the turbine. And the flue gases are utilized by these superheater tubes. So that is the advantage. Then the flue gases pass through economizer to heat the feed water also. So the water which is fed into the boiler drum, boiler tubes, that water you should not supply uh, cold water. You should supply hot water so that the efficiency of the boiler increases and the efficiency of the overall plant also increases. So that is the thing. Hence the flue gases are used to increase the temperature of feed water which is running through economizer. After that, it passes through a dust collector. So the dust collector is placed before chimney. So that dust collector will remove the dust in the flue gases, and finally the through chimney the gases, effluent gases are exhausted to atmosphere. So this is the air and flue gas circuit. Next, water and steam circuit. In this, the water is preheated by the flue gases in the economizer. So this preheated water is then supplied to the boiler drum, that is boiler pipes. So heat is transferred to the water by the burning of the coal. So due to this, water is converted into the steam. So the furnace will burn the coal and heat is produced, and this heat will boil the water, and after boiling level comes, the steam is produced. The produced steam is sent, the steam raised in boiler is passed through a superheater, and this superheater is further subjected to flue gases, hot flue gases. Hence, the wet steam is converted to dry steam, and the turbine drives generator to produce electric power. That means the steam is running towards the turbine. Thus, it is rotating the turbine, and which is driving the generator to produce the electric power. So, the expanded steam is then passed through the condenser. So the steam is now the expanded steam from the turbine. Now it is coming towards the condenser, where this condenser converts the steam into the water. So this is the water and steam circuit. The fourth circuit is the cooling water circuit. So the exhaust steam from the turbine is condensed in the condenser. In the condenser, the cold water is circulated to condense the steam into water. That is the purpose of the cooling water. So the condenser utilizes the cool water, to convert the condensate into water. The steam is condensed by losing its latent heat to the circulating the cold water. So that steam loses the latent heat, then only that is possible with the help of cold water only. Hence, the cold water gets heated. Because the cold water gets heated means it cannot be used further. Hence, must be sent to cooling tower. So this hot water is then taken to a cooling tower. In cooling tower, the water is sprayed in the form of a droplets through nozzles, and the atmospheric air enters the cooling tower from the openings provided at the bottom of the tower. So here, that means, you see, this is the tower. So the hot water through nozzles, different layers of nozzles, it is sprayed like this, and from the environment, cool air is coming. Hence, the water temperature drops down like this. The falling droplets, water absorbs the cool from the environment, and the temperature comes down. Hence, it becomes the cooling water. This cold water is again circulated. It is again circulated through the pump, condenser, and the cooling. Some amount of water may be lost during circulation. Hence, makeup water is added to the pond by means of a pump. So, that is the cooling water circuit. So, the cooling water, it is pumped into the condenser, and then it is somewhat get some heat. Hence, that hot water is pumped to the cooling tower. Then from the cooling tower, the water is cooled down and pumped into the condenser. From the condenser, it takes the heat from the steam and gets heated up and sent to the cooling tower, and cool down and coming into the condenser through pump. So this is the one circuit. Observe here, this is the energy conversion process in thermal power plant. So the chemical energy, that is the fuel or coal, so that is a chemical energy. That chemical energy is transformed into heat energy with the help of boiler. So that heat energy is directed towards the turbine, which will that steam will rotate the turbine, hence the heat energy is converted into the mechanical energy, and that mechanical energy is further converted into electrical energy by the generator. So now let us consider boiler. So it is a steam generation unit in thermal power plant. So there are two types of boilers, fire tube and water tube. In fire tube boilers, hot combustion gas flows through tubes which are surrounded by water. That means, let us see, uh, so there is water here. This is the water drum. In the water drum, tubes are running, immersed. Tubes are immersed like this. These are the tubes, fire tubes. You can call it as fire tube. Why fire tube? Because hot gases are flowing through the tubes, hence they are called fire tubes, which are immersed in the water drum. So this makes the interaction of the heat and water, hence the water gets boiled. The water gets boiled. This is the fire tube boilers working. Next, let us see water tube boilers. In the water tube boilers, so the in the water tube boilers, the water runs through tubes opposite to the fire tube boilers. So these water tubes are placed in the furnace. You see, this is the furnace. So fire is generating in this furnace. So water tubes are like this, water tubes. So these water tubes, the water is running through water tubes, and this fire produces hot gases which are utilized by the water tubes to heat the water running through the water tubes. So this is a water tube boilers working. Now let us see the building blocks of fire tube boiler. Here, observe here. So this is the fire tube boiler. So this is the water drum. Observe here. This is the water drum. So this water drum is filled with water. Continuously the water is flowing. So this is the feed water supply into the boiler drum. So now these fire tubes are immersed in this water. So these are the fire tubes. You see, these are the fire tubes. These are the fire tubes. So the fire tubes are immersed in the water. And so the fuel and air supplied into the furnace here. This is the furnace. So the furnace will produce the hot gases. These hot gases are running through the pipes like this. Running through pipes like this. hot gases are running through pipes like this. So what happens is hot pipes will transfer the heat to the water. Hence, the water is boiled. So this water, once it is boiling, what happens is hot steam is produced here. This is the steam dome. So this steam is directed towards the turbine after superheating. So this is the construction and working of fire tube boilers. So in the locomotive type boiler, fuel is burnt in a firebox to produce hot combustion gases. So the firebox is surrounded by a cooling jacket of water connected to the long cylindrical boiler shell. So the hot gases are directed along a series of fire tubes or flues, then penetrate the boiler and heat the water, thereby generating saturated steam, that is the wet steam. So that steam rises to the highest point of the boiler, the steam dome, where it is collected. So the dome is the site of the regulator that controls the exit of steam from the boiler. In the locomotive boiler, the saturated steam is very often passed into a superheater back through the large flues at the top of the boiler, or dry the steam and heat it to superheated steam. Now, the superheated steam is directed to the steam engine's cylinders, or very rarely to a turbine. In the power plant, it is directed towards the turbine to produce mechanical work. So exhaust gases are fed out through a chimney and may be used to preheat the feed water to increase the efficiency of the boiler. So next, let us consider water tube boiler. So what are the building blocks of the water tube boiler? Let us consider here. This is the water tube boiler available to us now. So this is the boiler drum, and this is the furnace. This is the furnace area, and air and fuel, that is coal, is pumped into the furnace and heat is produced. This fire will heat up the water flowing through the pipes. So observe here, the water, feed water is coming like this. So the feed water is coming into the boiler drum, and in the boiler drum the water is being circulated like this. You see, the water is coming like circulating through the pipes into the drum like this. This is a continuous process. So this is the circulation. So what happens is the water available in the pipes are boiled, and that boiled water is available in the drum, and which will produce the steam here on the top of the surface. This is the steam. So this is the steam produced. So this is the construction and working of water tube boilers. So generally the water tube boilers are used for a high steam demand and pressure requirements. And the capacity of this boiler ranges from 4,500 to 120,000 kg per hour. So combustion efficiency enhanced by induced draft provisions. So lower tolerance for water quality and needs water treatment plant. So water circulates in tubes heated externally by the fire. So the fuel is burned inside the furnace, creating hot gas which heats water in the steam generating tubes. In smaller boilers, additional generating tubes are separate in the furnace, while larger utility boilers rely on the water filled tubes that make up the walls of the furnace to generate the steam. So, now with this, we conclude our lesson. We have discussed the power generation thermal power plant layout diagrams. Both the diagrams we have discussed. You can learn one of them. And we have identified four basic circuits. And after that, how they work. Each circuit working we have explained. And the building blocks of boiler process in thermal power plant also discussed. That is, what are the parts of the boiler and what is the working of the boiler we have discussed. And we came to know that the boiler can be uh, either water tube or fire tube based boilers. In the fire tube boiler, the flue gases, hot gases are running through pipes which are immersed in the water. So that the heat is transferred to the water and water starts boils and produces the steam. So that is the fire tube boilers. Next, in the next type of boiler, that is the water tube boilers. In that, what we have done is, in the furnace the water tubes are placed so that the hot gases passes over the water tubes and the heat is transferred to the water, and this water is being circulated in the boiler drum and through pipes. Continuously it will circulate so that the steam is produced by boiling the water. So, in this, what we have to understand is the steam plays important role by converting the chemical energy into mechanical energy. So the water which is boiled is producing steam, and further that steam is the wet steam. That wet steam is not suitable to run the turbine, so that must be superheated so that appropriate temperature will be maintained in the steam. That appropriate superheated steam is directed towards the turbine. Then the turbine starts rotating. Once the steam touches the blades of the turbine, then the turbine starts rotating. So the expanding steam, the exhaust steam out of the turbine, once again it is directed towards the condenser so that the steam can be once again used as water, so that the external water, river water or pond water may not be, should not be misused unnecessarily, so that the condensate of the condenser very useful by reusing the water. So, with this, we conclude our lesson, and in the next class, we will discuss boiler process and measurement of feed water flow rate. Thank you.